Today we're going to tell you about one of our favorite stateside airports.
And the first one that we flew into as a married couple.
Aww.
Hi, welcome to Around the World with Joshua and Alyssa. And today we are going to continue telling you about airports that we have been to with one of our favorite ones here in the U.S. that is not Minneapolis, St. Paul. And that airport is located in Colorado, Denver International Airport. And it is really unique looking from a distance because it looks like a whole bunch of circus tents all lined up. What those are supposed to represent are the mountains in Colorado.
I was gonna guess that.
Yeah. Yep. So from the side, you just see this whole long line of these pointy tents. Yeah, that's really what they are. And you drive under there for arrivals and departures. And so that's like the front of the building. When you get inside, you have a lot of these double escalators. So the best way to explain this airport is it has like 6 different concourses that all run parallel to each other. And they have a train that connects all of them underground. So then you get on the train, you go to the correct concourse, and then you go up one of 2 escalators to the main level. And then on the main level, you then have a couple more escalators that will take you up to a second level, which is a little different because the main level is where you fly out all your departing gates, and the second level is kind of like quiet space. There's a few chairs, a few electrical outlets, but then a lot of just empty space. And we like to go up there and rest. Take a nap if it's a long layover. Now, as you can see in this picture, in the back there's like a lounge space with all these fancy lights and this green backdrop. And that has been added quite recently. And so that's a fun place to go to now, but we haven't actually been there to this airport for a while to really enjoy that lounge. So this is looking down from one of the main levels to the train that goes underground. I think the first time we went here together, we got on the train and we went all the way around the circle. We went all the way to one end and all the way back. Even the part where they said,
"Okay, now get off the train."
Yeah, this is our last stop. We just stayed on
It was fun.
and went back into this like nowhere space and then came right back out. And so each of these little areas where you get off the train has its own theme. And this one is kind of like a, I don't know, like an Aztec or ancient something, some ancient city type theme. But then this one is really cool. They have this airplane that is hanging inside the concourse right above the train exit. And it is an airplane that in 1996 flew around the world in 49 hours, 21 minutes, and 8 seconds.
Wow, it's pretty quick actually.
Yeah. If you think about how it takes, 18 hours to get from here to like Guam.
Yeah. That's impressive.
This is 49 hours around the whole world, and so that set a record for the quickest to fly around the planet. And it's now hanging there. This is just some neat architecture over one of the moving walkways. There's a lot of really neat things to see in this airport. If you have a long layover, just instead of waiting at a gate, walk around as much of it as you can because it's so fun just to see all the variety.
And lots of little stores and stuff too.
That's true. When we talked about security and TSA pre-check many weeks ago, several months ago, I don't remember when it was that we did it, but we showed you this picture, and this is from Denver Airport. This is what the security line looks like during the busy time there. Another unique thing about this airport is it is one of the largest airports by land space that it takes up. In fact, when you land here, it could take you like 10 to 15 minutes just to taxi back to the terminals because they have so much space, it's so spread out. The one time when we were flying on Southwest, the flight attendant said, "We have now landed in Kansas."
Such a long time to taxi to get to the airport.
Yep. So it was pretty funny, but a lot of Southwest flights out of here, a lot of United flights, and we like to fly the Southwest flights through Denver. And it was the first airport that we flew into as a married couple. You can see there we are as just little guys. This was before we were able to get into any lounges there, but there was a restaurant that we could get into for free with some free food. And so that there is all the stuff that we could get for free.
Which was really nice.
It was a really tasty meal. So much that we had to take some with us. But we flew into Denver and then drove up to Colorado Springs for our honeymoon. And so that was our first airport as a married couple.
Mm-hmm. Besides Minneapolis, the first one we flew to.
Yep.
As a married couple.
And it was a neat experience.
Yeah. We like Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Let me tell you a little bit about our missionary person. So here was our picture from last time. Remember, we're learning about Cameron Townsend, and he was a farm boy, grew up with lots of siblings, learned to work really hard, and then he had a job at a Bible house. And then, do you remember what the Bible house asked him about at the end of our story last time? They were asking him if he would go to Guatemala. So he said he was going to pray and think about it for a little bit. So he talked with his family, and he did pray a lot about it. And he thought about it, and he prayed. And he felt like, well, you know what? I really think that God would like me to go there and to meet the people of Guatemala. And you know what? I actually studied Spanish a little bit, so that should probably help me. And so he decided to get on a boat and go to Guatemala for a few years. Now, he had to take a boat, and it took him 18 days to go on this boat, the SS Pacific Mail. And he took the boat from California, where he was living, down to Guatemala. And, or from San Francisco, I guess that's part of California. And part of his job was that he was going to work in the main city of Antigua, and he was going to meet lots of people and just try to make lots of friendships so that eventually he could tell these people about the good news of the gospel. And thankfully he knew Spanish. That really helped him out a lot. Well, one of the days he was exploring the city and just kind of looking around, seeing lots of different kinds of buildings and the things that were a little bit unique about the city of Antigua, and he saw some men kind of gathered around in a graveyard. Thought, well, this is kind of interesting. So he got closer and he realized they were like praying to this dead person. And he thought, well, this is really interesting. So he wanted to learn more about what they were doing or why they were doing it. And really, he wanted to share the good news of the gospel with these people. So he got up close and he asked them, ¿Hablan español? Do you know what that means? It means, do you speak Spanish? Well, that seems kind of silly, right? Because he's in Guatemala and the people speak Spanish. But it wasn't a silly question. These guys kind of looked at him. Nobody answered him, and they kept doing what they were doing. And he realized they didn't understand him because these guys were from another tribe. And there were over 2,000 tribes who had different languages in Guatemala. And some of the people lived in the city, and some of them lived outside of the city. And he realized this was a group of people that he did not know their language, and they didn't know Spanish, even though they lived in Guatemala. So suddenly he had this thought, you know, every person really has the right to have God's word in their language. They should be able to know what God wants to tell them, and they should have the Bible right in their very own language. And he realized these people probably didn't have the Bible in their language. So he got to learn about them, and he found out that this group of people didn't even have an alphabet. So they had no way of even writing down the letters for their sounds to make words for other people to read. They just spoke the language, and these people could all speak it to each other, and they understood each other, and they knew the words and everything. but nobody had taken the time to put it down into letters and sounds for other people to be able to write and read things. So we began to think about it. If there were all these people, all these tribes, over 2,000 tribes who didn't have the Bible, somebody needed to go and learn their language to be able to put the Bible in their language. So one day he got to talk to a guy named Frisco, and Frisco was from one of these tribes. He was from the Kachukil tribe, and he was explaining to Cameron, he said, really, no one cares about us. Nobody wants to take the time to learn our language, and we're really not even very valuable people. We're not even worth that much. And Cameron knew that was kind of sad, but it was true, because in the markets, they would sell different things, and they would sell animals, like a dog or something like that. And a dog was sold for like 10 pesos, like their kind of money. But a little girl from this tribe could be sold to like work in somebody's house, and she was only sold for 4 pesos. So they valued the animals even more than they valued these people. And Frisco said, it's not really fair. Like, nobody really cares to learn our language. They don't really want to know about us, and they don't really care. And do you think you could be our missionary? You could be the person to care for us? And Cameron decided he was going to be a missionary to these people. They needed somebody to love them and care about them and to bring the good news of the gospel to them. We thought, how in the world am I going to learn their language? And one time he tried to hand somebody, one of these tribal people, a tract. And the man wouldn't even take the tract. He said, why should I take something from you that's from a God who doesn't even care to learn my language? Cameron thought, it's not that. God knows all the languages of the world, but we just don't know this language, so we need to learn it. So he moved to an area where he could be close to these people and spent a lot of time with Frisco, and he had a whole collection of cards and a shoebox. And every time he had a new word, he'd write it on one of these cards and put it in his shoebox. And he learned so many words and so many sounds. And he had to watch his friend's mouth really closely when he learned the words and sounds so he could make the sounds just like his friend did. And he practiced and he practiced, and he had so many words stuck in his head. There were all these different definitions and things that he had to learn. And he thought, there's like 10,000 different ways of saying one thing, and he felt like he was just drowning in the words. Was he ever going to even be able to put their language into words and have a Bible for them? You're going to have to come back next time to find out.
I wonder if he's going to be able to do it.
We'll have to find out.
I will come back. All right. Alyssa is going to tell us about somebody who, well, she knows, and gave a little review of 2021, and so she's going to share that.
So we're going to talk today about a girl named Lydia, and she was my roommate when I was in Peru. All of a sudden I was going to say Hong Kong, but that's not right. That's where she lives now. When we went to Peru together. And so we've talked about her a couple times, but I think it's been a while since we've shared an update.
Yep, I think it has been.
So here's Lydia. She sent me this nice updated picture of her and then the city line of Hong Kong behind her. And it's really common for it to be really cloudy like that. When she sent it, she was like, I wish it had been a clearer day, but this is more like what Hong Kong is like anyways. So I asked her about some of her personal and family highlights from 2021. And she said her highlight of 2021 was the unexpected chance that she got to come to the U.S. during her summer holiday.
Yeah.
They had lots of crazy travel restrictions that Hong Kong has had for 2 years, but they kind of let up on it a little bit during the month that she had available. So she took the opportunity to see her family again. She was able to hold some new little family members for the first time, see her parents again from after 3 years of being apart.
Whoa.
And spend time with her siblings. Her trip was such a great blessing. It was worth every penny, all 10 PCR tests. That's a lot of COVID tests.
That would be the
One
worst.
trip. And she had to do 7 days in a government-approved quarantine facility when she got back to Hong Kong. So here's a picture, and she felt really relieved to see her luggage getting loaded onto the plane. And it was crazy. She was texting me about the time that all this was going on when she she was trying to come back because Hong Kong was changing the rules like within the hours.
Wasn't that when a flight got canceled too?
Yeah.
Oh.
It was a mess.
Phew.
Her time in the U.S. was spent doing some of her favorite things, which was making pies with her aunt and watching birds with her grandma, visiting her siblings, babysitting her nieces and nephews, and talking with her parents. It was an incredibly needed and indescribably beneficial time for her. And she said thanks for paying for her trip, which I think we were. I think we gave an update on her sometime around the time when she was getting ready to come back.
Yeah, we did.
So after she flew back to Hong Kong, she had to do a 7-day compulsory quarantine in a government-designated hotel. And they had food on a chair outside her room 3 times a day. And then she had to put little specimens for COVID testing on the chair too. And she was allowed to check out when she completed her time with all negative results. That's crazy. So 3 days after she got back to Hong Kong, the quarantine length for arrivals from the U.S. was increased to 21 days. So she only had to do 7, but she almost had to do 21, which is crazy. All that paperwork and everything too.
Do they pay for the hotels too, or does the government pay for that? Because that's a big difference.
I can't remember that part. We'll have to ask her that. I asked her what were some ministry highlights from 2021, and she said that her church welcomed a new pastor and his family at the beginning of the year, and ordained one of their church members in May, and said a goodbye to their former pastor and his family in June. So the year was full of lots of transitions in leadership and fellowship. And they also moved to a new location, which we did talk about.
Oh yeah.
In November.
In a new tall building.
Yep, and they have 2 rooms in a former industrial building, with 1 room on the 5th floor that they use for church services, and another one on the 6th floor that they use for office space and overflow gathering space. So after a couple weeks of being in their new location, they began to rent out an adjacent space on the 6th floor for their children's ministry. They said it required a tight squeeze because I think it was a lot smaller than their other space, and a special camera lens, but they managed to get a photo of all the church members on their first Sunday in the new building. I think you can kind of see because it looks like it's like stretched on the side.
Yeah.
She said she's been continuing to participate in the music ministry at church, and she plays her viola with the piano for congregational singing and special music, as well as getting to sing in the choir.
Nice. She's the tallest one.
I know. She is pretty tall though.
Yeah, she is.
Sometimes she said she has the opportunity to help in children's ministry, like this Sunday before Christmas when they make cookies and frosting for the children to decorate together. It was fun. I asked her if the people in her country or region have a special way of celebrating Christmas. She said in Hong Kong, Christmas is primarily a commercial holiday. It's like a shopping center and the buildings are decorated, and Christmas music can be heard like everywhere, but the holiday isn't really like cultural for the people of Hong Kong. And most just enjoy the day off from work without celebrating anything. But the church is an exception. One special tradition Hong Kong churches enjoyed was Christmas caroling, but probably not the way you're thinking of. After the sun sets on Christmas Eve, every church in town would gather in a central area where there's lots of people walking, and they would sing Christmas carols, some a cappella, some with a keyboard or guitar, some with lots of instruments, and the church members who aren't singing or playing would pass out Christmas tracts, church invitations, or candy to people.
I like that idea.
Yeah. So her church was able to participate in the caroling tradition a few years ago, but not every year because of the high demand for spots in the town center. That's kind of interesting.
Oh.
The entire square would be filled with dozens of churches all caroling simultaneously. Wow, that's gonna be nice and loud. Providing the neighborhood with a variety of music, displays, and lights. Unfortunately, with all the social distancing, this has kind of stopped groups from gathering, and they have to hold on to this idea until the pandemic ends. So some churches brought choirs, or like this one, they brought some of their worship teams to sing and do stuff. Her church brought anyone who could play an instrument or who was willing to sing. So she's looking forward to the day when they get to do that tradition again. And then I asked her what her church was looking forward to in 2022. And she said this. Her Church Fall is a Bible reading plan every month, and in 2022 they're reading straight through the New Testament together. So a new project they started is compiling a recording of the entire New Testament in Cantonese. So each Cantonese speaking church member will sign up to record a chapter each month, so by the end of the year they'll have a Cantonese audio New Testament. That's kind of cool.
Nice.
It's an exciting project for the church members, and she's been encouraged to hear the testimonies of each other as they read the scriptures and how it's motivated and comforted the members, even though they can't be together physically because of COVID.
It's a really good idea.
Yeah. It's cool, like the church gets to participate in it. It kind of would be cool to listen to it then later, like hear the different people from your church. So I asked her, are there any praises or prayer requests? She said that Hong Kong right now is having its hardest wave of COVID-19. The fifth wave began at the end of 2021, and it's brought the highest case of numbers and the strictest social distancing rules. Churches were required to cease gathering in person, so they've been doing Zoom and YouTube since mid-January. So she asked that we pray for the city to make it through this wave quickly with no more lives lost, and that their churches would be lights of hope and help in the dark, discouraging days for Hong Kong. Along with their new church location has come a new opportunity for outreach in the community. So when they moved in, they used the space for tutorings in the weekdays. They offered classes for English and math and art and music. They were able to invite lots of students to their children's ministries and parents to their services. But all of that's been canceled because of the ban and gathering in groups, so you can pray that the progress that they had been making would be able to restart again and they wouldn't lose it all. And then she's also praying that she'd be able to come back to the US this summer. The probability is pretty small with the situation in Hong Kong right now, but God provided a really cool way for her to come last year when it seemed impossible. So even if it's not exactly the same, God will provide for her needs and take care of her while she's in Hong Kong. And she said, God is good always. And I was just even texting her today, and she was saying how hard it is because they have some really crazy strict rules, like really crazy rules for COVID. And she said it's kind of lonely because everybody's really nervous about getting COVID and not wanting to give it to somebody else because it causes all sorts of problems for the people you know. So you're just kind of by yourself a lot of time, and that's tough, especially if you're living in another country. So even if you think about it, about somebody living in another place, or think about even how you think it's hard for COVID here, just think about somebody who's living by themselves on another side of the world, and their government makes it really nervous for them to get COVID. So that's Lydia in Hong Kong. So we'll be praying for her, and hopefully her church will be able to get back together soon, and maybe she'll make it back to the US this summer too.
Yeah. Thank you for joining us once again for yet another episode. Come back next week to hear about another airport that we have been to, and we will see you then. Bye.